to today's Los Blancos podcast. Today we'll be doing an Atalanta preview because tomorrow we have the European Super Cup and it is time. First trophy of the season on the line in Poland, and it will be a very difficult game. I'm nervous because it's obviously a team we're obviously unfamiliar with, and so therefore it's a little bit of what we expect from Atalanta. But in Warsaw, it's going to be a difficult game. So let's talk about Atalanta, shall we? Because if you recall, a couple of years ago we played against Atalanta in 2021 when they were at that peak. That was their peak of their club where they were just fantastic, scoring so many goals, being so fluid, pressing so well, so hard. They were such a fantastic team to watch. And that was seen as a bit of a potential stumbling block for Real Madrid back then. But nowadays it's a little bit different. Gianpiero Gasperini, who's still there, has completely shifted their team, because after that 2021 season, they had to go into a bit of a rebuild because most of their squad was quite old at that point, and so they had a few down years saying 8th, 9th, 7th, around that position. So down years I say is pretty good for their club generally, but nonetheless they had a few poorer years, and so whilst they were transitioning to a more young side. However, since that run, those stretches of seasons where they were so fluid and so good, in possession, they've shifted their play style. Gianpiero Gasperini has shown his versatility, and their side has become more of they've become more of a solid, resolute side since then. So it's going to be a very interesting way to see. I mean, back then, they really do not have any guys that I recognise from back then who are still there. Toloi is still there from a couple of years ago. Palomino is still there. Jim City is still there. Hatterbo is still there. But apart from that, I can see Pasalic as well and Deron. So they've got a few guys still from where they were a couple of years ago. But if we look at their starting 11 for this game, but that's predicted. We start in goal, Juan Musso. Centre backs, we Jim City, Hien, who I'm not really familiar with, but we'll see what about. I'll do a little bit of research about that. Kolasinac, Zappacosta, Pasalic, Edison, Ruggieri, Lukman, De Ketelaar, and Matteo Retegui up front. So a very different side to the one we played a couple of years ago. But I think the back five is obviously the main thing. Still stayed constant for Atalanta. But I think, what can we expect from Atalanta? Let's talk about that, because after watching their Europa League run last year, it was very obvious that Atalanta, when they want to be in these big games, they know how to shut down guys. They know how to shut down the main players of the opposition team. If we think about this, in the final against Bayer Leverkusen, Granit Xhaka, who had been such a good player and probably been the heartbeat of that Bayer Leverkusen team, couldn't really do what he wanted to do, and in terms of going and playing around the penalty area, playing around that area, and dictating the ball. He couldn't really do that, and therefore Atalanta won that game, and they really knew how to shut down Granit Xhaka, and that obviously everything else fell apart for Leverkusen in which a way that no other team in the world could stop Leverkusen last year. But the way Atalanta did it, they knew exactly how to do so. And so you also looked at guys like Frimpong, Florian Wirtz. These guys were totally shut down by that opposite number. Someone like Sead Kolasinac, who many people would have considered finished when he left Arsenal, has found almost a second life. Zappacosta as well. Same thing. These two players who I thought were pretty shit when they were at Chelsea and Arsenal. They obviously left, and now they've found the second life for themselves. It's almost this veteran type who you can trust almost in any type of situation. And so It's been a very, very good, they know how to use their players, they know how to get the best out of their players, and this has always been something of Gasperini. Whereas so he looked at someone like Luis Muriel a couple of years ago, who had been bouncing around to other Serie A teams, and he got the best out of him. Zapata, if you recall, a couple of years ago, was like scoring goals left, right, and centre. Ilicic obviously was obviously the biggest name of the Atalanta team back then. But yeah, like I said, it's a very, very difficult team to come up against, and a lot of Real Madrid fans might look at Atalanta and look at their players and sneer, because they're not exactly quality personified. If we had played by Leverkusen, you could have looked at their team and said, these are the players we have to look out for. But I think that's probably one of Atalanta's strengths, is that you can't pin them down to one guy. They can hurt you in multiple ways. But let's give a couple of the most important players, and I think two of these guys are, for me, I think the main guys for Atalanta. I think starting with Ademola Lookman, I think it's very obvious Ademola Lookman is the talisman of the side. Obviously, at the end of last season, in the final, in Atalanta versus Leverkusen, Ademola Lookman went ahead and scored a hat-trick in the final. Like, that's very damn impressive. It doesn't matter who you played against. Scoring a hat-trick in the Europa League final was very, very, very impressive. All three goals were pretty good finishes. The first two, I believe were excellent finishes off the left. And so we're going to have to be very, very careful, because a lot of the time these attackers for Atalanta can create something out of nothing. They can do something in which it was pretty much a half chance, but Atalanta can be efficient out of that, and so we have to be careful for that. You look at Matteo Retegui as well. He's obviously, his goal record's pretty not very good, but he is an Italian international. He has obviously played for Atalanta now. He used to play for Genoa, and then I believe he played for Tigre in Argentina. So yeah, a bit of a weirder career, but nonetheless, he's definitely someone we have to look out for. He's definitely more capable in the air. They are missing Scamacca, so that's something we have to be happy about, because Scamacca was definitely good for them last season. And you also have to look at the second most important player. I think perhaps the most important player for Atalanta is Ederson in midfield. I think this guy is, whenever I watch this guy, he really impresses me for Atalanta. Whenever I'm trying to tune into AC Milan versus Atalanta or Napoli versus Atalanta, he is always there, and he's always getting up and down the field. He's always long busting. If you want him to do a job defensively, he'll do that perfectly. And then if you want him to go provide a bit more quality further up the field, I think he does that perfectly as well. I do think he's very much a bit like Fede, in the way that he just does everything, and he does everything really damn well. I think that's something we have to be wary about, because it was him that shut down that Leverkusen midfield last year. Wirtz couldn't really get a hold of the game. Granit Xhaka couldn't really get a hold of the game, and so overall, this guy completely shut down their midfield, and they couldn't play because of Ederson in the final. And I think you can also chalk this down to other games. I think the Liverpool game as well, the one in which they won at Anfield and destroyed Liverpool at Anfield. It was him in the midfield, just getting up and down that field and making sure that he did absolutely everything to make sure that Liverpool could not win that game. So I think that's the main players that I think you have to be careful about. Charles de Ketelaere is obviously a player that we've obviously heard about in the past, but I don't think I could be completely taken out here, but I think we can contain him. But someone like Ten Miners, in the defensive midfield, he can also be very, very good as well. I like him a lot. He's very much a metronome type player, and so I think we should be wary of him. But alas, all of that is obviously means nothing, because let's talk about Real Madrid, because a lot of big decisions going into this game. Obviously, pre-season ended with a win against Chelsea, in which I thought Vinny was fantastic. So let's get on to the predicted lineup for Real Madrid, and my lineup for Real Madrid. So in goal, I would like Thibaut Courtois to start, and I think he had a really good pre-season, and I thought he looked really ready. In fact, I thought he has looked even better than he was pre-injury, post-injury. I think he looks fantastic, and that is testament to Thibaut Courtois as a player. The fact that that injury really didn't affect him too much. At right back, I had to go for Dani Carvajal. Danny, obviously, he didn't play in pre-season, celebrating with Spain, but he's still on holiday, and I think that could be important. But I think Dani Carvajal comes back and plays this game and hopefully excels, because he will have a potential big matchup against Ademola Lookman, and so shutting him down is one of the most important things in this game. Then the centre backs. I think for me, I'll go for Eder Militao and Rudiger. Obviously, this is the first time in a while that we're going to see Eder Militao and Rudiger in a big game working together. This is the first time in a big game these two have played together. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this duo works. In the past, it hasn't particularly worked too well. But it's on these two to now go and make it work, because if it doesn't, then we could be in a bit of trouble with no other centre backs apart from Vallejo or Sherman. So yes, these two have to find a way to make it work, in my opinion. Then left back, Furlong, and the same thing as Dani Carvajal. Obviously, was still on holiday for pre-season and so didn't play, but I think Furlong and he will be ready, more than ready. Because I don't think he didn't play a minute in the Euros. I don't think so. I think he'll be completely fine to physically. It's just whether on a sharpness level he'll be match fit, because it's a different ball game playing in an actual fixture to a friendly. So it'll be interesting to see, but obviously he's going to be important. And Fran Garcia maybe a bit more match ready, but I wasn't happy with Fran Garcia's pre-season. I thought he looked pretty poor at points, most of the points anyway. So yeah, that's what I think for the back four. Then this is where things get a little bit interesting. Now we know what Carlo Ancelotti thinks of the Super Cup, which is it is an extension of the Champions League and it's an extension, so he wants to give the players who played last season a chance to go ahead and win this trophy for Real Madrid. Obviously, we're now one man down from last year, which is obviously Toni Kroos, who is no longer on the team. So then what happens? Do you put Camavinga in, because obviously Camavinga was very much involved, or do you swap out Toni Kroos for Kylian Mbappe essentially? Listen, obviously 3 midfielders are very much going to be guaranteed a spot here. I think Tchouaméni is going to be guaranteed a spot. I think Valverde and Jude Bellingham, all 3 of these guys were not involved in the pre-season, and so that does concern me a little bit. But I think Fede is obviously always going to be match ready. Jude, I think I'm a bit worried about Jude, because listen, he looked very, very injured by the end of last season, and going into the Euros, I think he looked very injured. Obviously, we had the news about that shoulder as well, the potential surgery needing to be done. I'm a bit worried about Jude going into this season, but if he's ready to play, and if the team suggests that he's ready to play, then go ahead. Who am I to say no? But I think I'm a bit concerned about Jude Bellingham, but the other 2 I don't think so. I think they'll be completely fine and ready to play this game. Maybe it's once again it's a test of the match fitness, and so match readiness. So I think that'll be the main thing. But then the front 3. I think Vinny and Rodrigo are very much in. Vinny looked so ready for the season to begin. Rodrigo, I think, looked alright, but I'm assuming he'll get better. And it's very much who's going to fill that 11th spot. Is it going to be Mbappe, or is it going to be Eduardo Camavinga? Who is it going to be? I think I'd be inclined to go for Camavinga. I'd be more than inclined to go for Camavinga, but I think Kylian Mbappe will play this game. I just don't think Carlo Ancelotti is going to have the ability to say no to Kylian Mbappe at this point. So I think Kylian Mbappe is going to have to play this game. But I think Camavinga deserves it. I think the team, in terms of the tactical familiarity, I think the team would rather have Camavinga in this right now. But, perhaps it would probably be better to play Kylian Mbappe against the back 5. We also have to bear in mind that Atalanta will not be, playing too much of a high line. So that's probably going to be Camavinga would probably benefit from that more because you're trying to break down that high line. Or, we could also consider someone like Brahim Diaz or Modric. Both these guys played all preseason games. And so I think Brahim Diaz looked fantastic in preseason. He's very ready for the season to begin. Maybe he deserves to play the season. But for me, I would go for Camavinga here. Although Camavinga didn't play preseason, same as Mbappe, both these guys did not play preseason. So maybe you go for Brahim Diaz. I think Brahim Diaz could be more than ready. But yeah, that is it, I think, for today. Big match tomorrow. I think, just a quick preview for you guys. That is it for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's Los Blancos podcast. Please like and subscribe, and as always, I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.